Today, music is more than sound. Many of the world's most popular artists use it as an expressive medium for emotions, thoughts, and self-identity. A blank canvas for the artist's soul. Kendrick Lamar, Bruno Mars, SZA, giants in the music and pop culture world. Decades ago, this wouldn't have been the case. Society wanted music to have rules, boundaries. It was meant to please, not provoke. So when Arnold Schoenberg, the most controversial contemporary composer ever, carried out his right to compose music of his choosing, and the responsibility as a composer and creator to push the boundaries of music, he received plenty of backlash. Schoenberg's fight to preserve creative rights and his artistic responsibility to push boundaries of art ensured creative rights for future artists. This is the story of Schoenberg's Symphony of Rebellion, the story of the composer who redefined music. Arnold Schoenberg was born September 13, 1874, in Vienna, Austria, into a non-musical family, but was exposed to music through his brother and cousin. Throughout his upbringing and early life, he was mentored by a pool of composers and musicians, including Oscar Adler and Alexander von Zemlinsky, which led him to produce his first public piece, String Quartet in D major, in 1897. As a composer in the late Romantic era, his early works were received well. However, later in his career, Schoenberg's genius matured, as did his musical style. In the early 1900s, as the second phase of Schoenberg's career began, people believed music had to be tonal and pleasing. This means his later works experienced considerable pushback. Additionally, he was Jewish, living in an era of rising anti-Semitism in Austria and Nazi Germany. When the Nazis took power, he was forced out of his home into California. This added difficulty to his journey. His music was deemed degenerate by the Nazis, a label that would prove to be destructive to his career. These issues weren't in vain, at least, because they helped mold Schoenberg's opinions on innovation and self-expression. Schoenberg created a method. The 12-tone technique, also known as serialism or atonality, was a method of musical arrangement in which all 12 tones of a song are equal. He avoided repeating any note until all others had been played, creating music that felt random and unintelligible. At first, people despised Schoenberg personally, calling his work utterly disgraceful trash. Listening to it was akin to reading a paragraph focusing on 12 equally important topics. Most of his famous compositions, like Moses und Aaron, Die glückliche Hand, and Pierrot Lunaire, employed this method. Without it, music wouldn't have broken the barriers it did, and never have reached the heights it reached. Fortunately, Schoenberg didn't let negative critics interfere with his right to create. He believed it was his responsibility as an artist to continue. In a 1935 article titled Composing with 12 Tones, Schoenberg stated, "To understand the very nature of creation, one must acknowledge that there was no light before the Lord said, 'Let there be light.' And since there was not yet light, the Lord's omniscience embraced a vision of it, which only his omnipotence could call forth. A creator has the power to bring his vision to life, the power to realize it." Schoenberg made his right to self-expression known. He believed his art was divinely inspired, and therefore a responsibility, not a choice. In addition to faith, Schoenberg had other ideas about responsibility. He wanted to retire the constraints that were put on music by tonality, the norm at the time, therefore innovating music forever. In a quote, Schoenberg stated music had to be new and challenging, and in another he said, "If it is art, it is not for all, and if it is for all, it is not art." Today, this idea that music is for a select few deeply knowledgeable scholars might seem elitist. It might seem like he insisted other people's ideas about music were plain wrong. At the time, it was progressive. It helped people understand music deeper and, in the future, opened doors for the accessibility of music. It allowed future artists to make what they wanted, regardless of opposition. Schoenberg and other composers knew people thought their pieces weren't music, because they held tonality as a golden standard, and the lack of familiarity that followed atonality deterred listeners. Schoenberg understood he was responsible for the beginning of an era, where this golden standard no longer stood. Atonality was a gateway of expression for Schoenberg, and could be for others. Schoenberg used this idea to lead his march towards creative freedom. Schoenberg believed when someone isn't afforded the artistic right to create, they have a responsibility to fight for their right. Inversely, he believed when someone has an artistic right, they are responsible to use it, if capable. He encouraged others to do this, because he wasn't always given the same luxury. While living in Austria and later Nazi Germany, he was unable to express himself through art because of the artistic repression he faced. Utilizing similar ideas, Expressionist painters extended people's concepts of art around the world. Their works were new, meaningful, and tended to contain dark, controversial ideas, like the inevitability of death and the acceptance of taboo topics. This outlet for creativity quickly faded away, as the degenerate art label really stuck due to the grotesque nature of their pieces. People thought these artists had to stop, and that the right to creativity didn't apply to them. People had the same outlook on these paintings that they did on atonal music. Schoenberg managed to preserve his creative right by persevering through the critique. Schoenberg was more than a composer. As a teacher, he taught at different schools, teaching his technique to anybody who wanted to listen. As a mentor and inspiration, he developed some of the most influential composers of that era, including Alban Berg and Anton Webern. He inspired people like John Cage, Bernard Herrmann, Philip Glass, and Vasily Kandinsky to continue pushing the boundaries of art in different ways. Arguably the most revolutionary of the bunch, John Cage made his infamous piece, 433. For 4 minutes and 33 seconds, he let the audience be the music, as he believed that music was ever present, even in silence, an idea bestowed by Schoenberg. This personal impact Schoenberg had on others was crucial to the musical movement. One of Schoenberg's famous song cycles, Das Buch der Hangenten Garten, contained his infamous piece, Du lehnst wieder ein Silberweed. The song doesn't reference a key, meaning it was one of the first songs to use serialism. This was groundbreaking for him, as the song cycle was very popular, exposing many to 12-tone music. This led to developments in music theory and comprehension, altering the course of music history. Though his music was never really accepted during his lifetime or even now, Schoenberg's ideas were still incredibly significant. His early development in atonality laid the groundwork for music as an academic course of study, in addition to solidifying an artist's responsibility to push boundaries. Additionally, his techniques are still studied by young scholars all over the world. In 1998, the Arnold Schoenberg Center was founded in his name. People from all over the world go there to learn and celebrate the amazing contributions Schoenberg made to art and expressionism. Arnold Schoenberg was one of the most impactful composers of his era. His decision to persevere through negative critiques not only changed the way music was made and received, but also ensured the creative rights of artists around the world. Arnold Schoenberg didn't just change music. He redefined what it means to be an artist.
And in the course of doing so, influenced music in ways that are almost indescribable. I mean, he is that important. All right? He challenged us with ideas that were so important that nobody could afford to not at least think about them.
When he died in 1951, it was a travesty. While original Schoenberg works were no longer created, his music lives on as an influence through other composers and expressionists.